Good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to our sixth annual State of the Department address. It's now been obviously a longstanding tradition. We are, again, as in years past, thrilled to welcome our visiting resident applicants. We look forward to welcome you to a wonderful day meeting the Department of Surgery. I'm also pleased to announce that just today, literally hot off the press, is our annual report. We intentionally kept these from you so you wouldn't look at all the shiny pictures while I'm speaking, but we look forward to sharing that with you as you leave today, and hopefully will be something that helps as a takeaway and to reinforce the messages of today. So the title, Our Finest Hour, in quotation marks. Some of you may have guessed at the meeting, intentionally provocative. But hopefully by the end of the hour, we'll tell a story that I think rings true as one that is very reflective of the department and its great history. To begin, a disclaimer. It is impossible in 1 hour to talk about everyone and everything that has contributed to a great year of accomplishment again, so my apologies in advance. For those who I are either unable or perhaps forgot to mention, but certainly they should not take away from my true feelings of gratitude to everyone in this department and our colleagues and friends around the college and the hospital and the like, who have contributed to yet another very strong year of accomplishment. So this is the Department of Surgery. In the model that we have tried to develop of servant leadership, it is structured, as you can see, with a very robust infrastructure, in particular in terms of our research enterprise led by Scott Lemaire and Barbara Troutner, full of 60 staff members now supporting our faculty, residents, and students in terms of our research enterprise. More to come about that. Our education teaching programs led by Brad Scott and Holly Shilstone, again, has developed over the last 6 years into a very robust program that I think is second to none in the country. Our 11 divisions led by truly, I think, some of the finest surgical leaders in the country, many of whom's accomplishments we will be talking about today. The department at a glance, again, 11 divisions, now almost 160 faculty members broken down as you see there, nearly 400 full-time members of the department overall. We perform about 100,000 patient visits, participate in 100,000 patient visits, performing nearly 28,000 surgical cases at our 5 primary affiliates, Baylor St. Luke's, Texas Children's, Ben Taub, the DeBakey VA Medical Center, MD Anderson Cancer Center, true to the form of everything is bigger in Texas. Each and every one of those institutions, either the biggest or in some way one of the very best and finest in the country. On the research front, our NIH funding stands today at $4.7 million. We'll talk about the growth of that over the last 7 years and nearly $10 million in extramural funding overall. Again, considerable growth over the last 6 years. We have 120 residents and fellows in 8 specialty residency programs and 7 fellowship programs. And in all, the department has produced about 360 peer-reviewed articles over the past year. Reiterating the point of growth, as you can see here, the department over the last 6 years, since 2012, has continued to grow. To now stand at 157 faculty members, broken down as you see there. In the last 2 years, there has been about a 15% growth in our faculty net and 55% from a low of 102 in 2013 in the past 5 years. Very gratifyingly, I think this says a lot about the caliber of the department and the strength of our faculty and our residents. On the adult side, there's been about a 98% retention rate over the last 2 years. Slightly less, but still extremely high on the at our affiliates and at Texas Children's. And about half of our faculty, or 55, have been promoted over the last 5 years, as indicated there. The breakdown of where our faculty practice is seen here. In 2018, approximately half of our faculty were either at St. Luke's or Texas Heart or at BCM, the main campus, typically science and research. And breakdown is seen in terms of our affiliates, about 30% at Texas Children's and the remainder at the VA or at Ben Taub. Over the last 5 years since, or the last 3 years since 2015, there's been approximately a 50% increase in the faculty at St. Luke's, reflective of the significant growth of clinical enterprise there, 30% at Baylor, and about 20% at Texas Children's, again reflective of significantly increasing enterprise. To lead that department, in addition to our existing faculty appointments and leadership roles, a number of new leadership roles in the last year is depicted here. Perhaps most significantly, Larry Ollier taking on the role of Surgeon-in-Chief at Texas Children's Hospital, leading our education program after Dr. Holger Haynes, after 6 fantastic years building our undergraduate medical education program, pursuant to her outside leadership growth interests, has succeeded, and her Associate Clerkship Director Stephanie Ireland Gordy has taken over the clerkship role. Jed Nocturne has stepped up and will be leading our global surgery track. More about that to come. Critical care has been a fundamental and core program over at St. Luke's and at Ben Taub, and to accommodate the growth of those programs, Rob Southard has taken on the role of leadership of the critical care enterprise, covering all surgical units at St. Luke's. Michelle Lohr has taken on leadership of the surgical ICU. And over at Ben Taub, Jeremy Ward has risen to the surgical ICU director to help leadership there. Lisa Halbert is taking on leadership of our electives program. Ed Buchanan over at Texas Children's moved up to Chief of Plastic Surgery, taking the role of Larry Ollier. And Dean McKenzie comes back to Baylor, having seen that the dark side outside of Baylor is not nearly as great as that here, and has come back to help over at Texas Children's on the congenital program and leading our training program. Again, to help support this significant growth, we were able to recruit Paul Bristol as our chief of staff, essentially, administrator of the department. Paul comes originally from University of Michigan, where he was chief of the vascular surgery division, and most recently a leadership role at UTMB. David Ashton has joined us this year to help lead our growing research program. Additional staff members, Shelley Bruner, Ashley Benning, and Alexis Scott, and then 2 new division administrators, Matt Bush and Sakib Sufi, both of whom are doing, as is all, excellent jobs at vascular surgery, plastic surgery, and general surgery surg-onc, respectively. So let's talk about our missions and where we have gone in the past year. It, of course, all begins very much so at St. Luke's in our clinical program, and again, really a story of a significant growth. As depicted on this graph, we can see that there's been nearly a 300%, 260% increase in our clinical case volume at St. Luke's, as demonstrated there over the past 5 years. And interestingly, this is a data point I have not shared with the department before. Over half of the surgical case volume at St. Luke's is depicted here. 51% is performed by Department of Surgery faculty. There are a number of surgical leaders playing critical roles everywhere from plastic surgery and vascular surgery to transplant and surgical oncology. But 2 leaders who carry a tremendous portfolio of activity and effort in terms of improving and expanding the clinical program are Bill Fisher and John Goss, leading our surgery and transplant service lines, respectively. And I wanted to give a special shout out to both of them for their truly innovative and yeoman's works building those very significant programs. Other clinical milestones that I will mention, and literally, of course, there are too many to mention completely. The growth of our robotics program, which now exceeds 400 cases a year at St. Luke's. Our advance of our bariatric center of excellence, something that had not been present at St. Luke's for a very long time under the leadership of Carlos Galvani. Chandra Carr as well, as well as Dr. Holger Haynes, and we plan to receive approval for that center of excellence designation in the next 6 months. And finally, the efforts of Gabe Lohr and the transplant team in terms of performing the first ex vivo lung perfusion in Texas, and leading the country in terms of EVLP trials, essentially a way of sustaining organ transplants prior to implantation through very exciting advanced technology. Over at the clinic led by Deb Bennett and our new recruits, Yvonne Berry and Anu, we continue to grow and improve our case volume in terms of new patient visits and total visits as seen here, reflected in 70% growth since 2013. Our Press Ganey scores, which at times we've struggled with as we've continued to grow really from scratch 3 years ago, continues to improve with significant progress as depicted here to our benchmarks, in particular in general surgery, plastic surgery, thoracic, and cardiothoracic. We continue to innovate in the clinics as well as in the hospital. One such advance that we look forward to fully implementing this year is our Emmy program. This is an online informed consent program which will make it easier for patients to understand the often very complex issues involved in preparing for surgery, and this is something that will really help lead the way in terms of, we believe, patient satisfaction, comprehension, and ability to comply with very complex procedures. A number of other initiatives is depicted here, including hot off the press, I apologize not having the picture, our first annual kickball tournament, which was staff, faculty, and residents as well, and we had about 80 participants in that. So Deb, thank you for organizing that, and I don't know the winners of the tournament yet, so we look forward to announcing that in the near future. There's a number of programs that I want to highlight for excellence, even above and beyond the normal standards of success. And in particular, that includes just tremendous work over the past year under the leadership of Rob Todd. Fantastic things going on at Ben Taub. Just to mention a few, our trauma program, which had been close to being on probation 4 or 5 years ago, this year received recertification without citation. The TQIP program, which analyzes the outcomes of trauma programs, designated this in the top 10% nationally. And under the leadership of James Suleberg, as well as Dr. Todd, and the F.A.C.S. NISQIP, which again is a metric of general surgery and surgery services performance, we received meritorious performance designation. This past year, only 58 of the 850 hospitals in the NISQIP program received that designation. And exciting news about Ben Taub expansion after many, many years is going to be a significant growth in the infrastructure over at Ben Taub, as depicted here, including 7 new operating rooms, translating into a 20% expected increase in case volume, 2 hybrid suites, not typical of a municipal hospital, and a $25 million renovation and expansion of the ED, including 5 new shock rooms and 24 new treatment rooms. And finally, and some of you may have heard about this, contract negotiations with Harris Health, which is our healthcare provider for the county, are proceeding in a very good fashion, and actually we have a contract in hand that we expect to sign for a 10-year renewal of our relationship with Harris Health. Our other featured programs, a mark of innovation, perhaps none better highlighted than our transoral endocrine surgery program led by Ray Grogan. A little bit more about Ray in a few minutes, but essentially through Ray's innovation, which as you can see really leads not just nationally but worldwide, scarless thyroid surgery with thyroid surgery performed transorally through the mouth. Ray treated us with a phenomenal grand rounds just a few weeks ago, and truly leading the way worldwide in terms of this surgical innovation, truly in the model of Dr. DeBakey having the department lead nationally. Likewise, Joe Mills and Miguel Montero are leading the way in terms of limb salvage in our vascular surgery program. Significant growth, as you can see here, and in particular their STEP program taking off from Dr. Mills' efforts at Arizona, and worldwide recognition for his Wi-Fi limb salvage classification and diabetic foot program has led to a significant advance in terms of our ability to salvage limbs and prevent amputation in patients with advanced peripheral vascular disease. A fantastic multidisciplinary program which is going to be memorialized and advanced through our very recent approval, literally just yesterday, of an outpatient cath lab to support and supplement this program. Dr. Goss and Dr. O'Mahony continue to innovate in the transplant program, and this past year performed the first ever what is called an eye swap program. I needed this diagram to completely understand the mathematics of how this is done, but basically involves when there are two living related donors but not a match with the intended donor. There's an ability really reflective of tremendous logistic sophistication, being able to match up multiple donors so that the right donor is matched with the right recipient. Fantastic work. And another mark of innovation, another grand rounds recently, Brian Burt and his efforts in innovating an entirely new procedure. A very challenging surgical enterprise has been thoracic outlet syndrome, typically done from the outside in. And using robotic technology, Dr. Bird has innovated a way of doing this procedure robotically from the inside out, resecting the first rib, which really we were all fascinated by as a significant advance in this approach as well to taking on with a new insight disease that had been a tremendous challenge and an opportunity to advance again in the great tradition of this department. We continue to innovate in other ways, not specifically one disease process or the like, but in terms of quality improvement processes. Two examples depicted here. On the left, over the last 2 years, we have tried to close the loop, as Toyota Lean would teach us to do. And in this example of that, at our M&M conferences today, we embed quality officers so that as soon as we identify a systematic problem, we speak with our quality officers at the hospital there, but to take the activation arm. And in this case, we had a complication of an aspiration event. Our quality officers over at St. Luke's engaged immediately, and this picture reflects the innovation that resulted from that, where we now have navigable NG or feeding tubes to help prevent inappropriate bronchial intubation when placing nasogastric tubes. The entire process of error identified to correction taking less than a month. And perhaps even more exciting, a project being led by James Suleberg over the last 6 months with tremendous support from our residents. We analyzed all major complications at our M&M conferences for a period of 6 months, and then we're able to break that down into what role human factors or human error led to those complications. We plan to translate this not only into a paper and perhaps even a monograph, but then lead to a simulation trial so that we can help teach where sources of human error occur in surgical complications to avoid that happening again. This develops from our collaboration with the American Airlines Flight Safety Academy and NASA, which we'll talk about in a minute. And again, is an example of how I believe the department continues to innovate and help lead the way. So let's talk about our education mission, really at the core of our academic medical center. Again, very encouraging graphics and trends. As seen at the top right, our USMLE scores, trying not to give away too many secrets here, but in the interest of transparency, continue to improve to a last 3-year average of close to 250. The ABSITE scores of our residents in the program, again, continue to improve, reaching nearly the 60th percentile with very, very steep slope. This in no small part was the result of a very, very innovative program with tremendous diligence undertaken by Neil Barshis, our Associate Program Director for Didactics. We'll talk more about that in a second. And finally, I think reflective of these trends in our special programs, which again we'll talk about in a second, significant improvements really across the board in our ACGME resident surveys. Very key, important areas that we sought very much to improve, everything from our non-educational commitments to things such as fear of retribution, which we are at or very close to, in some cases exceeding national averages. So this year we have 930 U.S. applicants representing about 65% of the U.S. graduating pool. Tremendous candidates as seen here today. And again, we are very proud of the progress in our residency program under the leadership of Brad Scott and a cadre of about half a dozen associate program directors. Several examples of these innovative programs in education. I mentioned Dr. Barshis' efforts in didactics, and as in this data graph only Neil could produce. graphically representing that on questions answered on didactic questionnaires, our Baylor residents are now performing significantly above national metrics in terms of response rate. So we're expecting 100% across the board on this year's AppSite, clearly reflective of these efforts. But again, a very encouraging trend in this. Robotics has been a significant challenge to this department, as many departments, as we try to embrace and incorporate this new technology. We, again, as will be the theme this morning and over the past year, have tried to attack this head-on and under the leadership of Christy Chai and Carlos Galvani, a very robust robotics training program. Still a long way to go, but I think significant progress, and is depicted here, Robotics Saturday, where Dr. Galvani sat with a cadre of residents on a Saturday morning and spent a number of hours getting our basics of training embraced so that we could move forward with robotic experience in the operating room for our now well prepared residents. Our sim lab, again, is another core component of our education program. We have received accreditation through SAGES. And because of the challenges of faculty engagement, we this past year innovated 10 faculty members who are completely dedicated to sim lab activities, which has been under the leadership of Mario Vera, has been tremendously successful. We award those faculty academic RVU points. We'll talk about that in a minute. And the sim lab continues to grow in scope and focus, with now over 20,000 contact hours annually, of a 6-fold increase since the lab's opening in 2015. Other innovative and featured programs in terms of our graduate medical education include our green service orientation. So faculty sit with our residents at the beginning of the rotation, walk through expectations and goals. Our Ben Taub note session, which we will continue to roll out across the department, innovated by James Silverberg. This is the non-operative technical skills surgical skills session, where we embrace and focus on things unrelated specifically to how to do the procedure, but more related to things such as communication, teamwork, management, and leadership. Importantly, this is a resident-run, resident-organized program. It has been a true innovation in terms of understanding these non-technical components of how to be a great surgeon through leadership beyond what goes on at the bedside or in the operating room. Other aspects of the program include our wellness program, and this year we are embracing and taking on a new resident training program where faculty coaches trained over at Rice will be engaging with residents in their leadership development skills. Perhaps one of the gems of our entire department, if not just the education program, is our global surgery track. This is, as far as we know, the one and only national residency matching program, NRMP approved program in the United States, perhaps in the world. This did not exist in any way, shape, or form 4 years ago. And really the leadership innovation of Rachel Davis, now joined by 3 fellow colleagues, Megan Vu, who's our second fellow, is today over in Africa and will hopefully be talking to us by internet access. A truly fantastic, innovative program, and a real credit to our residents who helped lead and develop this. In particular, I would draw your attention to this schematic here, which was really Rachel's wisdom and innovation. And Rachel reasoned that rather than do 2 years of global surgery track, either in the middle or at the end of the training, Rachel rationalized that what you really want to do is spend the first year getting the necessary skills so that you could be an accomplished and contributing global surgeon. So the first of the 2 global surgery years is involved in learning orthopedics, OB, urology, ENT, the skills that you would need to go out into the 4 corners of the world. These are some places that Megan and Rachel, and now Megan, have visited and worked at. Then in the 7th year, when you are fully trained, accomplished, and a certified surgeon, then go out with the skills that you've learned and the experience, and truly be able to contribute to the greater needs of those in need. This includes the far reaches of the world, but also the far reaches of Texas as well. And one of the favorite rotations is a rural community program in West Texas, and even involves involvement over the WHO in Geneva to understand the mechanics of global health and global surgery. So truly a tremendous program. Perhaps most importantly, however, this is a program that was led by a resident and supported by the department and our faculty in our servant leadership model. Finally, in terms of our undergraduate medical education program, again, additional innovation. Our Student Traveling Fellowship Award enters its 5th year with our awardees as depicted here. This prior year, under the leadership of Constantine Macris, we began our anatomy lab proctoring program, and in close collaboration with our student surgery program, Dr. Holder Haynes has built, developed, and launched a SimLab boot camp program for our graduating students with interest in surgery. This year, perhaps the most significant project in our education front will be our laser education timeout, innovated by Hoptran Cal, where we're going to have an education timeout at the beginning and a debrief at the end of all surgery cases, faculty resident engagement to make sure we clearly understand the education goals of the case, and then debrief at the end to make sure those goals were met and addressed and realized during the course of the case. Types of program that are being rolled out nationally, but again, we expect that Baylor and the department will continue to lead in this innovative program. Our residents, as with our faculty, continue to be noted as with accomplishments as depicted here. Both our students and our residents continue to be acknowledged both locally at Baylor and nationally. Perhaps this most significant, or one of the most significant benchmarks of that success is our engagement at the Academic Surgical Congress, which Baylor and our faculty have had a significant role in. This has become quite fun, with our now, this past year, being the top 4 in terms of abstracts presented. And this little shout out from a former faculty member, Eugene Kim, which challenges us and a couple of other institutions. I don't really know who they are. I think it's Brigham and Michigan and the like. So the lead contributors last year challenging those to do as well this year. And the word is that we will again be one of the top 4 or 5, if not higher, in terms of abstracts presented at this very keynote National Congress. Research and innovation, much like education, are really a bedrock of our program, and we continue to do extremely well in this regard, as depicted here. Our NIH and extramural funding continue to increase significantly under the leadership of Dr. Troutner, Lemaire, and Chen. From a nadir of $600,000 in 2014. In 2017, we're up to $3.8 million with an NIH rank of 28. This year, we expect we'll have a total of $4.7 million in NIH funding, which includes our recently awarded T32 grant in cardiovascular surgery, with a second T32 in surgical oncology going in this year. A number of significant grants are leading to that. 2 that I would point out in particular, or at least one, is Dr. Najafi, who is a small business grant machine. I actually think he has an office and is parked out in the NIH offices down in Washington. It seems every week he's getting another SBIR grant. It's a tremendous credit to Bijan and the ICAMP crew who are innovating in terms of motion studies in collaboration with our vascular surgery group, as well as others. A number of other grants is depicted here. The T32 I mentioned, Jeff Morgan's $4 million Brockman Foundation to look at heart transplant salvage strategies, and the like. Again, high impact publications, journals such as Nature, Science, New England Journal, by a broad variety of our faculty and residents in a number of different areas. And again, a tribute to our research and innovation productivity. And on the basis of this and supporting and fueling this has been the tremendous growth of our research, what we have been calling our research core. In 2014, our core was more of a thimble with half an FTE. Melissa Jackson, who's really been the bedrock and the foundation of our growth. Today, as I mentioned earlier, now includes 60 staff members, research nurses, clinical coordinators, and the like, under the leadership of Barbara Troutner, supporting this tremendous growth in grants submitted, grants managed, and again, the fuel supporting the engine of our research activities. Because of this tremendous growth, this past year, Dr. Lemaire has reorganized our research core and our Division of Surgical Research into our Office of Surgical Research, as depicted here, to provide a more streamlined and efficient flow of research support, again, in our servant leadership model to our faculty, residents, and students, and I think we'll see continued growth in this area. Two of the benchmarks of these efforts are our Research Day, which again continues to grow. This past year, to an audience of about 250, we had the largest ever abstract submissions and presentations, as depicted here, and our department seed grant continues with 66 proposals in the last 4 years, 14 awards, $300,000, which is translated importantly into nearly $1.2 million in extramural grants, 15 extramural presentations, and a number of publications, including those in high-impact journals. This year's winners are depicted here, and again, a very, very exciting portfolio of very interesting and hopefully landmark research investigations. Two additional new initiatives taken on this year, which again I think promise continued growth and improvement, are our SHARE program and our RICE speed dating program. The first led by Barbara Troutner, the second led by Stuart Core, who runs our Instinct program. More about that in a second. So the SHARE program is going to be our platform for health services research. Basically, we're embedding 4 of our faculty members representing our 3 major hospital affiliates into what is one of the top health services research infrastructure programs in the country, led by Laura Peterson. And in our Rice program, we have this phenomenal institution across the street from us. Rice University has been exceedingly challenged to break through and develop strong collaborations with Rice. Just there's so much going on. And under Stuart's leadership, we've now created a seed grant program, a colloquia where we sit down with faculty in the School of Biomedical Engineering, and this year in a jointly funded program, Rice and the Department of Surgery have funded 3 seed grants where a collaborating faculty scientist from Rice is paired with a faculty member at the Department of Surgery to look at innovative programs in biomedical engineering with surgery applications. So a very, very exciting program. And the last of our innovations on the research front is Instinct, which again just continues to grow sort of organically through Stuart's imagination and innovation. So much going on in Instinct alone here that I can't even begin to detail all of it. However, Stuart basically in the Instinct program, which is essentially a surgical incubator, takes ideas from our faculty, our residents, and our students and translates them into potentially licensable, commercializable new science, new innovation. 2 examples depicted down here at the bottom, one by Ed Reese, a way of diagnosing carpal tunnel syndrome, and another by Rami Galani, looking at diagnostic evaluation of diabetic foot perfusion, but an entire portfolio of programs, including our surgical collaboration day, which featured an astronaut 2 years ago, and really just a tremendous portfolio of cutting-edge technology and thought leaders nationally and locally. This has been so successful that the college has actually agreed to sponsor it and partly fund the core, much as our SimLab, a product of the Department of Surgery, which is now, we are proud to say, been embraced by the college, that we can share these resources with our colleagues across the college. So where does that leave us in terms of our research program? Based on our success up to date, Dr. Klopman, our president, has agreed to commit to our path to 20, so to rise from our level of 58 a number of years ago. We are now at 28 in these Blue Ridge rankings, which rank NIH funding. Our goal is to get to 20 So the program has a commitment to recruit 3 additional NIH-funded investigators, one who we will hopefully welcome in the next few weeks, our second T32. We expect this year we'll be at $4.3 million in NIH funding, which should put us slightly ahead of Columbia, which makes me very happy being competitive with my old colleagues back in New York. And then hopefully reach the top 20 with the goal of $5.3 million in NIH funding in the next few years. I think very achievable and something we'll be very proud to share with the college overall and continue our advances in this front. So in terms of outreach, sharing what we are accomplishing here with our colleagues both locally and nationally. We have I think a very exciting effort led by Rizwan Motan, Scott Holmes, and Susan Ressler, where we are again disseminating and socializing our accomplishments both through our Facebook and Twitter pages. Everyone please share, continue to share in this program that continues to grow. We have a number of communications efforts underway on an ongoing basis as depicted here, including online videos, blog posts, e-news, and the like. Again, our annual report being one example of that. And we continue to play an important role in terms of placement in the news. Just this past week, Ravi Ganta, one of our cardiac surgeons, published a very exciting article in Journal American College of Surgeons that got picked up by Reuters and U.S. News, looking at disparities in terms of reporting systems for cardiac surgery, which increasingly the lay public are using. And Ravi pointed out the problems in terms of inconsistencies in this data reporting. I think we'll hear a lot about that. Last year, Dr. Suleberg and his ongoing efforts in terms of cancer pen technology, a new diagnostic spectrophotometer to instantaneously analyze cancer treatments, again, received national and international awareness in terms of, again, this very land-breaking technology. Another innovation in the department, which we're very excited about under Renetta Eaton's efforts, again, to disseminate the knowledge developed in the department and share it with our colleagues, is a portfolio of an increasing portfolio, actually, of CME events. This is probably most prominently marked by the DEF CON conference, which has over 300 participants now, the second year in a row, but a number of homegrown conferences as well, as depicted here. A very successful thoracic surgery, esophageal conference led by Sean Groth and David Sugarbaker, hernia symposium, first time out, which again was highly successful. Our tropical diseases educational seminar led by Rachel Davis, and an upcoming lung conference led by Brian Burt and Gabe Lohr, which I think will again be highly well embraced and again disseminate what is going on in the department to our colleagues locally and nationally. The American College of Surgeons just concluded, and again, another mark of our growing national presence as depicted here. We had well over 35 faculty, residents, and students participating, including our travel fellowships. And it seemed every corner there was another Baylor-led effort going on. And again, I think a very important and positive reflection of our increasing national presence and level of contribution. We continue to outreach as well locally and charitable and philanthropic efforts, including our Surgical Saturday, where a number of our surgeons donate their time and effort for at no charge surgical procedures done over at St. Luke's. Again, the hospital donates their services as well for those who need without means to afford needed surgical interventions. And I think now for our second or third year in a row, a number of our residents participated in our STEM festival, Star STEM Festival, where we provide access and information to younger medical school women potentially interested in STEM careers. And again, as depicted here, the robust participation of our residents. Supporting these efforts, again, are, of course, the development of our faculty and staff. And I shout out to John Goss and Renetta Eaton. This picture of Renetta, I think she's over on the side, is from about 3 years ago. She looks about 20 years younger since before she joined the department, so reflective of her tremendous hard work and commitment efforts supporting the department, not only in terms of our CME efforts, but this Faculty Appointments and Promotions Committee, which has really become a faculty development committee involved in a number of activities as depicted here, advancing the academic promotions of our faculty, equally importantly, sponsoring them for intramural and extramural awards, and really making sure they're on the right track in terms of faculty development. An important part of this program that we're very proud, very privileged, truly, to continue to engage in is our academic RVU model. This was presented by Scott Lemaire, who's the engineer of this program at the American Surgical Association this past year. For those, all of our faculty participated in this program, which basically allocates academic RVU points for efforts such as teaching, research, education, program development, and the like, all of which are designated by the faculty, not by the chair. And at the end of the year, based upon our financial performance and through the support of the college, which we are indebted to, we're able to distribute approximately this past year a record $350,000 in academic RVU bonuses for faculty, recognizing and awarding their academic achievements, which really underlines the major mission of the department, which is our academic endeavors to, again, advance medical science. Finally, in terms of faculty development program, I think two very exciting initiatives which have continued to grow. About 3 years ago, we partnered and collaborated with the American Airlines Flight Safety Academy to understand cross-links between knowledge and science in the aviation industry and surgical and medical care. 3 programs originated out of that. One is our online reporting system, which under Sam Mawad's leadership continues to be a strong database pointing out systematic problems or opportunities in healthcare. Under Chris O'Mahony's leadership, we will continue to advance this year the Jump Seat program based upon the aviation industry standard, where we observe team dynamics in the operating room. And this past year, under Rob Todd's leadership, we have, as depicted here, went with Rice trainers and trained a cadre of approximately a dozen faculty members who will now be working with our residents and ultimately with the other faculty in terms of coaching, asking key questions to help develop leadership skills. Just several weeks ago, we had NASA here, actually it was last week, and they shared some experiences in terms of their safety culture, including some misadventures in the space station, where literally, as we heard last week, an astronaut almost drowned in his spacesuit because of a human performance deficiency. They learned a lot from it. They shared those lessons for us, and we will hopefully use that as a basis to launch from our human factors database a simulation experience in terms of improving our safety culture in the department. On the basis of these efforts, a number of promotions, Dr. Yao, Kiswani, and McKenzie promoted to professor, half a dozen associate professor promotions in the past year, and a number of other assistant professors joining the faculty in assistant professor role. Again, important awards and contributions of our faculty. In terms of external recognition, I would take a special note of Jed Nocturne and Dr. Olatoye's rising being awarded with Master Clinician Awards, now about half a dozen such designations in the department, truly reflecting a lifetime of achievement and accomplishment in terms of clinical skills, and Neil Barshis receiving the Clark Award for service to patient care. A number of external awards as well, including Joe Caselli receiving the Distinguished Service Award, named to Board of Directors of the American Board of Thoracic Surgery. Bud Frazier receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award, only a handful of awards such given. by the ISHLT in the entire history of this organization, and Brad Scott recently receiving the Parker Palmer Award by the American College of Graduate Medical Education. Again, one of the few, if might be one of the only surgeons receiving this designation. Number of other awards and indication as indicated here. Number of endowed chairs as well, including Scott Lemaire receiving the Jimmy and Roberta Howell Professorship in Cardiovascular Surgery, a new endowment to the department, as well as Joe Mills receiving the Reed Endowed Professorship in Surgery. I think you could almost call this the year of the chief. A number of recruits that we made over the past year. I'll briefly summarize. Alistair Thompson joins us to lead our breast surgery program. A real steal from MD Anderson, a phenomenal internationally recognized breast surgeon. Taylor Ripley has tried to begin to fill the shoes of David Sugarbaker, leading our mesothelioma program. Steve Rosenberg called when we recruited Taylor and said he was one of the best. Steve Rosenberg, as the head of the NCI surgery division, said Taylor was one of the finest surgeons and scientists he had ever worked with. Alexis Shafi, who joined us to help lead our transplant program, has now done about a half a dozen heart and lung transplants in the less than 2 months that he's been here, really off to a phenomenal start. And is taking that storied program, I think, to new levels of excellence. Ray Grogan, we talked about, recruited from the University of Chicago, a tremendous innovator in science. I think we will hear a tremendous amount of news and about innovation at the hands of Ray and Dr. Suleberg. And finally, Texas Children's scored not a home run, but a grand slam in recruiting Chris Calderon. I served on that search committee. Chris was our absolute top choice as one of the great congenital heart surgeons in the world who we were able to recruit from the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto. More on deck, Ken Liao is going to be joining us from University of Minnesota to help lead the cardiac transplant and VAD program. Ken's nickname, we found out on the street, is the Tank. You may wonder what that means. It's not his physical size, although he's a big guy. It's because when at the University of Minnesota they get into trouble, they call him the Tank to bail them out in the operating room. I think as a surgeon you could want no better nickname. So we're looking forward to having the Tank join us at the beginning of the year to add to our transplant program. And Atif Iqbal will help lead, again, in this year of the Chiefs, our colorectal surgery program. Again, at the College of Surgeons, innumerable people stopped us in the hall and said, wow, you guys at Baylor are really fortunate to have been able to recruit Dr. Iqbal. Something good must be going on down there. It's depicting what our future is on the basis and the grounds of 2018 and what came before. A lot of great things to talk about. This is our retreat from 2017, a lot of lofty goals, all of which we are well, I think, on our way to achieving. Perhaps most importantly, I think a rededication to what I think is increasingly becoming our credo, which is equity, transparency, respect, and professionalism, which is how we got through this past year, and I know will continue to take us to even greater heights. Many things in process that are going to be the meat on the bones of that progress over the next year depicted here. We're very excited to be moving into our new campus at McNair in the coming year, being led by the surgical oncology group, bariatrics, plastic surgery, and then great new multidisciplinary efforts upcoming in the coming year and subsequent years, including integrated multidisciplinary programs in cardiothoracic surgery, vascular surgery, and the like. This is going to be partnered with efforts on the college level in terms of very, very exciting population and precision medicine, a grand strategy going to 2025 being led by Dr. Klopman. And I think the department will have a lead role in creating and actualizing this translational science in medicine. That will include, and this is now very real, I'm fortunate to be on the building committee of the board of directors of the hospital. And plans are well underway to begin construction of our new hospital, finally and at last, over at McNair with completion in 2023. And this, in turn, will be partnered Bobby Robbins' dream of a research park collaborating and coordinating the greatest medical center in the world, Texas Medical Center. For those who do not completely understand Texas style and methodology, this is a DNA helix, which I think you can see, which will be the core of this research park. But the special Texas part about this is it'll be big enough that you can see it from space. is only can be done in true bigger in Texas style, and Baylor will be at the heart of this. So again, thank you all. I appreciate your being here and your contributions, and I thank you for being part of the Department of Surgery. Thank you.